All right, everybody, welcome in. Welcome in. We are having a few technical difficulties on Eric's part. So, for a little bit, you get to stare at my ugly face right here and enjoy a great evening. But hey, thank you for joining us here this evening as we're waiting for our Facebook groups to get in. I'm just trying to make sure we got everybody going. And let's see. All right, guys, we got a great topic for tonight on building the Broncos, one of the all-time greats, one of my favorite players of the last 20 years. Humble guy, kind of came out of nowhere for the Denver Broncos, but yet at the same time was one of the big pieces that helped us win a Super Bowl, one of the big pieces that helped us secure Peyton Manning, one of the big pieces that helped us have the best offense in NFL history. And of course, I'm talking about Demaryius Thomas, everybody. And I just wanted to say, hey, get your comments in. I want to see what is everybody's favorite play. I'm going to put this little caveat on it, other than the Steelers overtime touchdown, because of course that's going to be top of the list of everybody's favorite play, and it should be. That was a franchise-defining play. That just changed everything. So of course, we're going to have that one in there, but I want you to think of some other ones. And as we get those comments coming in, I'll try to get them up here and we'll get going. But we got William coming in saying, I still regret not buying his jersey. You know, I got very fortunate. I had a family that was a big Broncos fans here in town. And one day they decided, I don't want to be a Broncos fan anymore. I don't know all happened, but anyway, they called me up and they said, hey, we're either burning these jerseys or you're getting them. So I ran out to their house and they had like 2 Peyton Manning jerseys, 2 Von Miller jerseys. They had a Demaryius Thomas Super Bowl jersey. So maybe one of these days I'll wear it for the show. And I was very thankful that all of a sudden I had a John Elway, Terrell Davis. I think that was it. And then all of a sudden, boom, here I've got all these jerseys coming in. So yeah, you can still go out there and buy one. You know, that's the great thing that comes with jerseys. You can always make sure to get those classics. Like I said, John Elway, Terrell Davis, those are great ones. But we got Shiloh coming in with our first super saying, missing the pod for Zoom call, but DT is deserving. Yes, he made it into the Ring of Fame today. Huge news from the Denver Broncos. Let me go ahead and read here what they had to say about this, of why he was one that had to make this team. And they said, Demaryius Thomas's election to the Denver Broncos Ring of Fame in his first year of eligibility is a testament to the indelible mark he left on our organization and community. One of the most beloved players and greatest wide receivers in franchise history, Demaryius inspired our fans with breathtaking athleticism, record-setting performances, and a joyful, infectious spirit. While we wish DT was with us to celebrate this special moment, we look forward to honoring Demaryius alongside his Super Bowl 50 teammates during our unforgettable alumni weekend. So, gives you an idea of how much this organization thought of him. And again, one of the all-time greats, and he wasn't one that demanded attention. I think of when he first came to the Denver Broncos back in 2010. You got to think of the quarterbacks he had. He had Kyle Orton to start off with. Then, of course, Tim Tebow, who has some of the most famous bad throws in NFL history. And, of course, then he has the one great one for the 80-yard touchdown. And Demaryius did not sit there and complain throughout that entire time. And then kind of paid off getting all of that he was able to all of a sudden get Peyton Manning into the building. And Peyton has even said that Demaryius Thomas is a big reason that he wanted to come to Denver. He thought this guy could be really, really great, could be the next big receiver in the NFL. And that's exactly what he became. You know, I was telling someone earlier about, I was kind of nervous when he was coming into the draft. Height, weight, speed guy. This is somebody Nick would have loved. But coming from that Georgia Tech run, throw it deep, run, throw it deep. those guys don't usually translate to the NFL. So I'm really, really glad that he did. And of course, we got Papa Bear coming in saying, good evening, Broncos country, hashtag 13-4. If we had Demaryius Thomas, I might be agreeing with you right now. I'm a little still nervous about the weapons that we have. I wish we would have brought in one more, but at the same time, thank you very much there, Papa Bear. Really good to see you. And of course, Michael coming in as well, saying, good evening, Carl and Eric on building the Broncos. Go, Bo Broncos. Good to see you, Michael. Thank you all for the support coming in as you are. And like I said, great subject, talking about Demaryius Thomas. I just wanted, oh, here we go. Here he is. He's back. He's alive.
Yeah, apparently we got a text message about an hour ago saying that they were going to cut off our internet, but they texted my wife and she didn't look at her phone. And so we're sitting in here getting ready to go live and everything just shuts off on me. And they're shutting off our power off, so they're working on a different unit in the building. They have to move some stuff around, like some of the electrical stuff and wiring. They have to update a lot of that, and so they shut it off for something, and it's going to be shut off again here later tonight. So, but at least I'm here now, right?
Yeah. When you went off, said Scott, his volcano must have gone. He's on the run. But thankfully, that was not the case. Just a little bit of power getting turned on and off. So Good to see you, Eric. Glad you could be joining me here tonight as Nick and his family are still off to having some fun. And we got James coming in saying, with Champ Bailey being honored, I'm so thankful I got to see that and that particular group play. DT was one of one, and his loss leaves a mark in Denver, in the Broncos, and to humanity. Yeah, I think this is the big thing with him. And Swarley says, I don't get to listen live much. I'm pumped. Good to see you, Swarley. Glad you're pumped. We're pumped. Talking about one of the great Broncos and getting into the Ring of Fame, Demaryius Thomas. You know, the great thing about him, he was an easy guy to cheer for.
Yeah.
It's not just that he was a great football player. He was a great human being, did a lot of great things within the community. And like I said, he didn't complain when he had Tim Tebow or Kyle Orton as his quarterback and wasn't getting any passes. I mean, we had the great 2-for-8 game that Tim Tebow had against the Chiefs. 8 passes in today's NFL, and not once did he go to the media and be like, man, I hate it here. I don't want to be here. They need to get me a quarterback that can throw it to me. None of that. He was willing to help out in the run game. He was willing to do whatever it took to help the team win. And that just, again, it speaks volumes to him about the character that he had, and he is more than deserving of getting this honor of being in the Ring of Fame.
Yeah, I mean, he is one of the few players that I think not only deserves the Ring of Fame, I think there's a lot of those. I also think he's one of the few players that actually deserves his number to be retired, because he was great on the field, and there are a couple, but very few receivers who had better careers with the Broncos than Thomas did. But he was such a great person on and off the field. He just, every single day he came in, he went to work, and then afterwards he'd go do a lot off the field. You know, did a lot of work with the Boys and Girls Club, the 18 to 88 scholarship or something like that. He helped fund that. So just a great person on and off the field. And I remember a lot of the media that, that are on site with the Broncos and everything, talking constantly about how great he is to talk to, how fun he is to talk to, and how easy he is to talk to. So play on the field, like, we all know it, we all recognize it. He truly is a great player, was a great player, and for the Broncos for many years. But I think it always goes a little under-mentioned about how great he was off the field. And especially for some of those teams that Denver had, they needed that. They needed that guy off the field as well to help be that calming presence when things weren't always calm with the Broncos during his time, especially before Peyton Manning arrived, and then after Peyton Manning was done in Denver. So I think it's great. And I don't know if you mentioned on this, I think it's great that it's at the New York Giants game the same week as the meet and greet. I think that's a very awesome thing for me anyways, to be able to go and be there and hopefully see that, as hopefully I'm able to make it to the game, but at least be there for the meet and greet.
For sure. You know, I have a friend that knew Demaryius Thomas personally, and he'd even talked about, hey, if there's a time you guys want to get him on the show sometime. And we were kind of in talking back and forth a little bit, and unfortunately, DT passed away, and just didn't quite work out. But no, but that guy was like in private, same guy, the same humble guy that you hear with the media. He's that guy, and I also think of just what he overcame. You know, his mom, his grandma, both in prison. He could have let that destroy him. He could let that build up a lot of anger. And instead, he used it to fuel him to help others that were in difficult situations. He used it to bring about good. So, like I said, I'll be one that that will not say bad things about DT. I know I've seen a couple people already saying like, "Oh yeah, I loved him, drops and all," and I get it. I mean, he did have a few bad drops, but at the same time, like you look at the top wide receivers, they're going to have a few drops along the way. That unless your name's Larry Fitzgerald, there's going to be a couple drops. And I was asking people earlier to name their favorite Demaryius Thomas play other than the Steelers Broncos overtime. And I mean, there's so many that come to mind. I think of the one-handed touchdown against the Chiefs. That was a beautiful one because, of course, it's the Chiefs. And we'll get to yours here in just a second. But before we do, I want to tell you guys about Underdog. Underdog is one of the best places to make picks during the playoff basketball. While they score buckets, you could score cash on Underdog, a leading place to make all of your sports picks. And you can play now in your state. Millions of fans have already won billions making picks on Underdog. Will you be next? Their app has over 100,000 five-star reviews and millions of players.
So to play, choose whether a player will go higher or lower on one of their stats like points, assists, and so much more. Playing on Underdog is a layup. Just download the app, then pick higher or lower on player stats like points, assists, rebounds, and more. Whether it's the NBA playoffs or Major League Baseball, Underdog has what you need to get in on the excitement and win money. You can play with as little as $1, and if you get everything right, you can win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn $1 into $1,000 just with your sports knowledge.
I have so much fun playing Underdog and winning money while playing sports. That's a slam dunk. Download the Underdog app and sign up now using the promo code MHuddle to unlock a special offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. Join in on the fun when you sign up with promo code MHuddle. Claim your special offer today and get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly upon first deposit.
Now, you must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT-STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 HOPE line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Thank you, Underdog, for the sponsorship.
Yeah, so like I said, favorite plays. Make sure you guys are getting those in for us. Another one, of course, is we've got Michael's coming and saying one of my favorite DT plays was against the Detroit Lions in the 2015 NFL season. Yeah, I think was that the one where I think it was against Darius Slay, and he was winning by about 3 or 4 yards. Unfortunately, Peyton Manning underthrew it, and he just mossed him and ran it in for a touchdown. I think that's the play maybe that you're talking about there, Michael. I love that one. There's another against the Chargers where he was in coverage. Weddle was in coverage against him, caught it on the sideline. Weddle missed. Then about 3 other Charger players are trying to chase him down, and he had that long speed that just made guys look so slow on the field. And so he outran them. And then he had one defender left, cut back. That guy hit like 2 defenders that were following him and ran it in for a touchdown. That was a fun one for me, just to see him miss. I think it was like 5 guys miss for him to go score a touchdown.
Yeah, I think my favorite one outside of that Steelers overtime game would probably be that one against the Chiefs, that one-handed one on the back of the end zone. And there was another one, and it might be the same one you're thinking of, but there was another one against the Chargers that was for a touchdown that was in a short yardage where he just went up and got it. And it was tight coverage. The guy was playing through him. I think the defender drew a defensive pass interference on the play as well, although I can't remember it for sure on that. But it was just one of those games where it's like, holy moly, Thomas can really get up there and go get it. Like he had a few of those, and that was one. It's like, man, this dude is unreal. So probably those two plays. If I can't pick actually, I'd probably put either of those over the one against the Steelers, anyways, even if we were including it.
Yeah, I think another one that sticks out to me is the Ravens game, the revenge against the playoffs in 2013, where Peyton threw 7 touchdowns, and that final one was the 80-yard touchdown, but Demaryius Thomas on the screenplay. Like I know you and I've talked about it before. We're not the biggest fans of screenplays because just the odds of them being successful are pretty slim. You know, it usually turns into more of a negative play, not like negative yards, but like just not what you would hope it would be. But with Demaryius Thomas, he's one of those few guys, when he gets the ball in his hands, man, he has that speed just to make people look silly on the field. So that one sticks out just because that was such a big game. When you lose the way you did in the playoffs, to then come back and watch Peyton Manning throw for 7 touchdowns, that was special.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we'd have to throw in there too at the time the record-setting touchdown catch for Peyton Manning, just because of that being so special for Peyton Manning as well. Not that it necessarily was a great play by Thomas, but for him to be the one to be able to catch that and have, I guess, that honor to catch one of the best quarterbacks, top 3 quarterback of all time, top 5, wherever you want to place Manning, having that in there and just the reaction that Thomas had with catching that. I think that's another one too that kind of sticks out, though more so for sentimental factors beyond Thomas, but the Thomas and Manning connection again, more than, being a great play. But yeah, that's another one that sticks out to me as well. But I know what one you're talking about with the Ravens, and that was a good one. I remember there's another one where he had a screen like that too, where it was like an 80-yard screen that he just outran, and also I believe ran through safety to make the play. Maybe not exactly 80 yards, but it was a long one.
I think maybe the Steelers. That might have actually been the very first game of Peyton Manning's time with the Broncos, because they played the Steelers in that very first game. Yeah. And Peyton was having trouble throwing further than about 15 yards because his arm still wasn't figured out. It was not, it was, I'll say, I was pretty nervous. Those first 5 games, I'm going, oh crap. we messed up. I don't know if he's got it anymore. And then that next game was that Chargers game where they were down 24-0 at halftime. And then it's like a light switch went off and Peyton was like, nope, I can still play. And it was just, I think that was an 11-game win streak right after that. It was so much fun. So, but no, I think it was that Steelers game. His very first one, he threw a screen pass and boom, he was gone. And that was kind of that, okay, this might be a fun little connection that we got here, where that athleticism with the mind of Peyton Manning, we could have some fun with this. And it was for 4 years there, man, to be a Broncos fan, everybody talking about you, and Demaryius Thomas being a big part of that. Like people looking at our wide receiver core, Eric Decker, you had Wes Welker there, Brandon Stokely for a little bit, if I remember right. And then, of course, Emmanuel Sanders. Like, man, the weapons galore. It was a lot of fun. And hopefully for Bo Nix, we can get something similar in place, because that would be a lot of fun for him to have as well.
Yeah, and it's just with Thomas, with one of those things with that too. You mentioned earlier about all he overcome. We can't forget what he had to overcome to start his career in Denver. It wasn't the best start. After the first 2 years, everybody was considering him a bust, basically, because he barely saw the field because he was always dealing with these lower body injuries. And he just overcame it and kept his head down. And eventually he found something that worked for him, that he was able to avoid those pulled hamstrings and strained groins and all that, and just kind of grew into it. And now look at us. We're talking about him as being one of the greatest Broncos receivers ever, how he's joining the Ring of Fame, and how they should retire his number. Like, it's just great, again, with all that he was able to overcome, and just the rare gifts that he had physically at his size, because those aren't things you see that often anymore. 6'4", 220 to 230 pounds, that with speed like that, like you just don't get it in the NFL that often. And the game's changed a little bit since then. And so it's just he's just one of those things, that one of those guys that you look back and it's like, when you look at the modern NFL compared to how it was, even though, hey, it's not that long since he's been retired and been out of the league, it's just, you don't see guys like that have that same kind of success or enter the NFL that much anymore. It kind of makes you a little what's the right word here? I can't think of the word I'm looking for.
Hate when that
It kind of makes you like very grateful that we got to see that part of his career with the Broncos. And because after he was traded, well, it was very obvious Denver traded him at the right time, because that decline came sharply and he was never the same player. But we were privileged enough to be able to see his greatness be at that. And especially now that we just don't get to see guys like that come around often.
Right. Well, that's, him coming from Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
That offense and how that was ran. Like you said, you don't get to see those kind of guys. I mean, you see athletes coming to the NFL every year, but for them to actually become good football players, that doesn't happen as often as you would like to think. I think I was watching something the other day, and it said it was figuring out even teams in the first round, how often do they hit? Mm-hmm. And there was not a single team above 50%. I think the Ravens were tops at like 42%, and Broncos were like 10th at like 34%, something like that. So again, I mean, the odds were that he was going to be a bust. And I think getting him Peyton Manning to teach him, hey, this is what it's going to look like. Reggie Wayne, this is what he would do. And these are the kind of routes that I expect from you. And just putting that demand on him of, this is what it takes to be great. And he answered the call. Like, he didn't fade away. And unfortunately, I think the Broncos got a couple other wide receivers during that time that were kind of that way, and of great athletes, but they didn't turn into anything because they weren't ready for that step.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Scott and I were talking before the show of greatest wide receiver, Jerry Rice. But I don't think he was the most gifted wide receiver ever.
No.
He just was the hardest working guy that maybe has ever played in the NFL. He was going to make sure, I can't control how athletic I am, but I can control how hard I work. And I feel like Demaryius Thomas was in that same boat. They would talk about how after practice, he and Peyton Manning and either Eric Decker or Emmanuel Sanders, they just stay for hours running routes. Not even Peyton Manning throwing to him, just Peyton saying, okay, hey, this play, I need you 5 yards. I need you cutting right here. This is exactly where you should be. Yeah. And they just practiced it over and over again. And we got Swarley coming in with a $5 super saying, Hall of Fame City Broncos fan, surrounded by Browns fans. This pod helps keep me sane. Thanks for the great work. # Broncos, # 88. Thank you so much, Swarley. I really, really appreciate that. And I feel your pain. I live in Chiefs Kingdom, however you want to call it. And especially these last few years have been nothing but, hey, how'd your team do this year? Oh, yeah, yours didn't win the Super Bowl, did they? Because mine did. And thankfully, I don't think anybody was happier after the Super Bowl this last week in this town than me. I got to go around town that next Monday, big smiles, and I made sure, let's go to the grocery store, let's go to the gas station, let's go to the post office, and just have a big smile on my face. I made sure all those Chiefs fans knew that their team lost, and I'm hoping you're doing the same for the Browns fans out there. It'll be insane. I got to say, I'm a little jealous of just the circus that you get to watch and be a part of there in Cleveland with all their quarterback situation. I think that's going to be one of the biggest talking points in all of the NFL this year, how crazy that is and how how much is just going to blow up in their face.
Yeah, at least surrounded by Browns fans, that stinks. But at least the Browns stink as well, so they don't have room to talk.
Yeah.
They don't have room to brag or rub it in your face or anything like that because they've been basically irrelevant for almost as long as I've been alive. So, hey, I don't have to worry about it a whole lot with where I live. I mean, there's a lot of Seahawks fans, but Seahawks fans here, they don't really jabber a whole lot. They don't really talk or anything. So it's whatever. But there's also a lot of Broncos fans. And with me being very introverted, it is kind of makes me a little uncomfortable when I go out and I always wear a Broncos hat when I go out. I wear a hat whenever I go out, period. And the amount of people that have stopped me over the last year, give or take, of nice hat, you got one in Bo Nix. Bo Nix is great. Or go Brock. Like, it's making me uncomfortable. It's making me never want to leave my house again.
I get it. I get it. But we got Naj coming in with a 1999 super. Thank you so much, Naj. Saying, hey, brothers, looking forward to seeing you bros and celebrating DT. Yes, very much looking for that meet and greet. I've already trying to talk to my wife, be like, hey, I'm taking this Sunday off. I'm going to be down there with all my guys. And I think she's coming around. I think she's going to be there, or not going to be there, but like going to be on board with it. So I should be there this year. This season is all about Bo. Will he build on last season or take a step back? We will find out soon. Yeah, that's I think every one of our shows has talked about. I think the Broncos have done mostly everything they could do to have a great team around him. That defense looks like it should be a top 3 unit in football. Got a great offensive line. Added a couple weapons that should make a big difference. So it really does come down to Bo. And I've been talking to Patriot fans. I think they got a pretty good chance of being one of the most improved teams this year, but it does come down to Drake May and what he could do. And so for the Broncos, Bo, I believe in him. The more we're talking about the hard work that you got to do to be great, I think he's one of those guys. I think he's got that drive where he loves football. He wants to be great. He puts in the work. He's smart. He's got the right situation as well. That makes a huge difference. You're talking about Demaryius Thomas when he came to the Broncos, and it was not a good situation. Broncos were coming off, I guess, 2010. Some of the most embarrassing football was 2010 for the Broncos. And man, not only were we a bad team, but then you had the cheating allegations that came against the team because of Josh McDaniels. And so for him to kind of step into the NFL at that time and still hold it together like he did, again, speaks volumes to him. And Bo Nix coming in when the Broncos were not a great team, kind of the laughing stock. ESPN saying that they're a bottom 2 roster. PFF, I think, had us as the worst roster. And nope, he just came in, did the work, and boom, playoff team. So it'll be exciting to see Bo live. I'm very interested to see. You get to see his athleticism on TV, but I think still live, it's going to make even bigger difference being able to see him run.
Yep. And I think one thing with Bo Nix, I mean, everybody, we talk about this a lot in the mornings, Nick and I do. And, it's been the topic of multiple articles or mentioned in multiple articles that I've written. The dreaded sophomore slump, right? You always worry about that, especially with quarterbacks. But when you talk about that, I think one thing you can't underlook is the play caller, right? There were a lot of concerns after CJ Stroud's rookie season with the play caller they had because there were some very questionable things that he did. And, the play caller in Houston, he got fired after the last season after CJ Stroud still put together a good season, but was a slump from a sophomore slump because it was worse in his rookie season. Granted, they also dealt with multiple injuries and their offensive line was terrible. But so the situation around Bo Nix with the play caller in being Sean Payton, who has always gotten some of the best football out of the players that he has, especially at quarterback. He got some of the best out of Teddy Bridgewater, some of the best play out of Jameis Winston, and so on and so forth. And so when you have that kind of guy at coach who really understands putting your guys in a position to succeed and calling plays to make a quarterback look good, it eases my concerns when it comes to the sophomore slump for Bo Nix. And not only that, they don't have a lot of moving pieces. the Broncos actually have the least roster turnover this year at like 84 or 86%. It's either 86.4 or 84.6% of the roster being the same as last year. All 5 starting offensive linemen, basically all of your receivers and all of your tight ends are back. You just added a new receiver, you added a new running back, and you had a switch at running back. You lost Javonte Williams and you brought in RJ Harvey. So not a whole lot of turnover on the offense, which is going to help Bo Nix with his comfortability with the guys around him, his comfort level, and the chemistry that he has with them, with those receivers. Because there are multiple times last year, especially early on, you could see that there was a disconnect between Bo Nix and his receivers, that the timing was off, that things were just off between them. And we saw it kind of get, not be as bad as the season went on, improve as the season went on. But there were still times with Devon Bailey, Troy Franklin had this issues catching over his shoulder. And, sometimes with Marvin Mims, there were some issues there with the routes, but we all saw it get better as the season went on. So now they have the whole season and another offseason of working in and only throwing in 3 new pieces. That all makes me a little bit more comfortable with Bo Nix this season, avoiding that sophomore slump. And part of the reason why I am so unusually optimistic about the Broncos for this season, because I don't have this pessimistic, concerning view about the quarterback position for a change.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the Broncos kind of earned your pessimism for a lot of years.
Yes.
It wasn't that you were actually wrong. I get it if the team is winning like 13 games, you're like, oh man, they still suck. No, it's hey, they were not a great team, and it took, and sometimes hitting rock bottom, that's how you bounce back up and start moving towards the right direction. And obviously, Sean Payton, right coach, ownership looking like they're the right ownership.
Yep.
GM looking like he's got a good relationship. Things are on the right direction as well there. Quarterback finally got that maybe figured out here. And so having all those pieces, like I said, it's not only just all the offensive pieces, it's having ownership on down the same.
Yep.
There's just not this turmoil that's kind of going on above all the players as well. That's been there for a lot of years for the Broncos. And so you're right. I do. I expect them to be very consistent. And I expect that they should have a better running game than they did last year, which will help immensely. Not only the offensive line being together, like you said, but having a running back that can actually produce some decent plays for you will be a huge thing for the Broncos. And Estime, I expect him to have at least a little bit better season. I'm not saying that he's going to be starter level kind of running back, but I think he should be a good number 2 for the Broncos and a good short yardage kind of guy. He did all right in those situations towards the end of the year. And so all of that together, like you said, I think will be really, really good for him. And I think he's got a chance to put up top 12 quarterback stats. And that's enough with this defense to make them a 10, 11, 12 win type team. And maybe, as Papa Bear says, 13-4. Maybe they can make it that way if their special teams gets to another level. And I mean, I think that's going to be another big key. The one change that they did make was special teams. You got a new punter, a new coordinator. I'm interested to see how that all plays out. But they have been a very strong special teams group since Sean Payton got there, because he puts a lot of energy into it, resources into it, to make sure that group is strong. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. But no, the offense, very excited for it. I still want one more wide receiver, but that's just me being greedy. So, and maybe I need to start viewing it as Evan Ingram is that star wide receiver that they brought in, because he does play more of that slot out kind of guy compared to the inline tight end position. And if you got Cortland Sutton being a 1,100, 1,200 yard kind of guy, you've got Evan Ingram being 1,000-yard guy right there, that 1-2 punch that we've been looking for a long time. And then you've got Marvin Mims being a 1,000-yard total kind of guy for you. That should give you a top 10 offense at that point. RJ Harvey, we'll see what he can all do. But if you can have even just, it doesn't matter who the three are. If you can have three guys that can produce total of 1,000 yards, whether it's running, passing, whatever it may be, I think this could be a really dynamic offense that teams go, okay, Broncos are serious. We can't have them be the laughing stock and say, all right, stop Cortland Sutton. Everybody else sucks. I don't think that's going to be the team this year. Oh, you're muted. Eric, you're muted.
I'm with you on adding another wide receiver because when you look at the wide receiver room, it is still Cortland Sutton and maybe the other guys.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Marvin Mims, he's an all-pro player, two-time all-pro player because of special teams, because of being his ability as a returner. Still waiting for more growth there on offense, especially as a receiver right now. He's proven to be a really good gadget player on offense, but we still need more out of him. Can Devon Bailey take that step up? Can Troy Franklin take that step up? Mainly learning how to catch over his shoulder to be that deep threat that they're wanting him to be. Can Pat Bryant come in and make and be as reliable and make that impact he can be and prove Sean Payton right? I mean, right? He's the pick that was the biggest reach. The most concerning pick the Broncos made. All these other things. Well, can he come in and prove Sean Payton right? So I get at wanting to add another wide receiver, but I also get where the Broncos, what I'm expecting them to do is see what these young guys can do. Because right now, if you add a wide receiver to the room, you're going to be taking away reps from these young guys. So they have a lot of faith and hope in during training camp, through the offseason activities. So it's a situation where, and I view it with running the same as running back now too. They want to see where these guys can go. If they can show these development aspects that they needed to see from last year, if they can show it this year. If they don't, if we get to week 2 of the preseason, after this second week of the preseason, right before the roster cut downs or right after, and they're not liking what they're having, then I could see them go make an addition at wide receiver, at running back, maybe pulling somebody that was cut from another team, or then maybe going and getting a veteran. But right now I'm with it. And as you said, with Bo Nix, is everything around him's great. Special teams, that's where most of the roster turnover is because, as you said, the coordinator, the punter is different, but also their primary gunners are different. Tremont Smith's gone. In comes Trent Sherfield. They also brought in the safety from Carolina, is a great special teams player. You also have PJ Locke no longer being a starter on defense, who's going to have that opportunity to be a key contributor back on special teams again. So they're really changing things up on special teams because Sean Payton has always been a believer in how valuable special teams is, how important it is for your offense, especially because you want to pin opponents back. That helps your defense, and you don't want to get pinned back by the opponent's offense. So you want to get strong return game as well. It all works in a cohesive circle. And so Sean Payton has the value there. And that's another thing. That's the biggest question I have when it comes to this Broncos roster is, do these moves on special teams pan out? But Darren Rizzi, to me, he is the best special teams coordinator in the NFL. And it's like with Sean Payton, having confidence in Sean Payton's ability as a play caller to, not see Bo Nix have a sophomore slump. I have the confidence in Rizzi to get the special teams up, which helps, again, Bo Nix avoid that sophomore slump. So I'm actually with Papa Bear. I have the Broncos going 13-4. That is how optimistic I am about this team.
When did this happen of Eric becoming more optimistic than me? I'm still always that hesitant guy to go clear to that kind of level. I think 12 is where I'd be at right now, just because I do think Chiefs are down. I think Raiders are better, but I still think that they're obviously bottom tier. That defense has a lot of holes. Chargers, I think the Chargers can be had. I think their defense has been getting a little bit older. I'm not sure that they're going to produce at the same level they did last year. And offensively, I mean, they've added some, but I still think that we could maybe take one from the Chargers as well. So, and then outside of that, you're playing the NFC East, a couple hard games in that, of course. And then let's see, is it the AFC North? Is that right? Or South?
North.
No, we played South last year. Why am I spacing on our schedule? But anyway, no, I do. I think the Broncos have a pretty good chance. I don't like how some of the schedule lined up, but it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I think they can overcome it and be just fine. So, no, I do. I expect the Broncos to be pretty darn good this year, as long as they can stay that dreaded H word, healthy. But even there, this is probably some of the most depth I've seen on this team in a while. Some guys that I think, like I said, PJ Locke, been a starter for the last couple of years. Now he's going to be a backup for this team. You think of linebacker and what they've been able to add there, defensive line, the groups that they finally have some younger talent coming in that could maybe step in and be something for you. Cornerback, I still worry just a little bit. I mean, I know they added, obviously, Barron, but I still worry a little bit if any of those starter three go down, what's going to come in next. But even there, you've got KD that I think could be a pretty good corner or slot corner for you. So, no, I do. I feel really good about this unit. I think even offensively, offensive line, I trust their coaching staff to really build up a couple of these young guys and see maybe what they could be moving forward. Wide receiver, as long as Sutton doesn't go down, you should be fine. Whoever the next guys are, I think the next guy up is going to be just fine for you. And so, no, I do. I expect this to be a really good team, and hopefully Bo Nix can prove himself to be a top 10 quarterback and having people go, oh, crap, we were really wrong on this guy. And I still think it comes down to with any quarterback, right situation, right coach, and talent. You need all three to really line up to be a great quarterback in the NFL. I don't think Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback that he is if he doesn't go to the Chiefs with their offensive line, with their weapons, and with Andy Reid, of course, as his play caller. Yeah. I don't think that happens. I think he's still a good quarterback. I just don't think he's Hall of Fame, legendary talks of him being maybe top 3 quarterback already in NFL history. Yeah. I think he just landed in the perfect situation. And there's been some quarterbacks that have had that. I think Tom Brady landed in the right situation. Not saying that he still wouldn't have been a Hall of Fame quarterback, but he had obviously one of the best coaches in NFL history. Great offensive line when he first came in. Great run game. Defense was off the charts. So he didn't have to go out there and be a star for them to go win every week. And I think it gave him time to really build up to the kind of quarterback that he became. And so, yeah, I'm not trying to take anything away from Tom Brady. I just think, again, he went to a really, really good situation.
Yeah.
And so hopefully that's the same thing for Bo Nix.
Yeah, and it's one of those things when you talk about this, like you always say is, well, so many teams passed on Tom Brady and Tom Brady's 6th-round pick. Well, there's no guarantee if Tom Brady goes elsewhere, he ends up what he is. There's no guarantee with anybody that's turned out well if they end up with another team, if they end up as great as theirs, because the situations around them, they matter. And it's all important from coaching down to their teammates even. And using this, bringing it back to Thomas, if Peyton Manning doesn't join the Broncos, does Thomas become as great as he is? The physical gifts were there, and we saw the drive and the focus to an extent beforehand. But if Peyton Manning doesn't come, does he ever get that voice of Peyton Manning being like, this is what you really have to do to be great? Or does Thomas start being a little bit fed up with the situation, with the quarterback play that's going on? You mentioned the 2-8 Kansas City game with Tim Tebow. A couple more of those, maybe he's like, oh, well, what's the point? Like, it's those things that are impossible to say one way or the other. And so it's one of those things of the situation always matters, and we don't talk about it enough pre-draft. And when I do when I create my mock drafts, I always try to factor that in of the situation, not just with coaching, but the teammates and the opportunity that's going to be afforded to them. And post-draft evaluations, well, if I don't think a guy's going to be successful, part of it's not always just about their talent. It's as we get more information, things can change. So this keeping it wide receiver goes to a team where they're 4 or 5 deep at wide receiver. He may not see the field early enough to correct some bad habits he has, because in practice you can work on it, but you don't really cement things in until you see the field. And rely on that under pressure, maybe they don't turn out that well, but there's a lot to it. We have Brian Dunn coming in with a $20 donation. Thank you, Brian. We appreciate that a whole lot, but we are going to have to actually wrap it up here because any minute now they're going to be shutting off our power again. But before we get that, we have Naj coming in with a $20 donation. Thank you, Naj. Can't wait to see you at the meet and greet this year. It's always a blast to see you. I remember last year at this last meet and greet, I don't want to say I scared Naj, but I asked him a question in the hallway at the hotel as we were walking to Chad's room, and he didn't realize it was me coming from him, so kind of caught him off guard. Made me laugh a little bit. But he says, brothers, running game has to improve drastically this season, and we are looking at a Super Bowl run. Who is starting? Estime, Harvey, committee. Defense can be special if offense plays complementary football. I think RG Harvey is your 1A. Actually, right now, I would say he is your number one back, with 2A and 2B being Estime and McLaughlin. So it's just going to depend on how things go through training camp. Maybe Harvey has a little bit of a rougher time adjusting and Estime really steps up. Remember, Estime was turned 21 years old at the start of the season last year. So he's still really young. Won't be 22 until after the start of the season this year. McLaughlin, they have a very clear role for him. So it's still up in the air what they're going to do at running back, but I have a lot of hope in RJ Harvey and a lot of faith in him because I think that the scheme is one that fits him really, really well. But there is a lot of room for changes to happen in the room depending on how play goes, because that also fits with what Sean Payton does, right?
Yeah.
He likes to rotate those running backs and likes to try to use the hot hand. And we saw that
last year. Right. Yeah. It's going to be opponent. And as Scott says, I think the better question is who gets the most touches week 1 compared to like week 6. It could vary every game because that's just who Sean Payton is. It makes fantasy football owners go crazy. Who's going to be the running back? But I still think Harvey, because of his probably work in the receiving game, is going to be a bigger part of the offense compared to Estime. I think each of them fit well together because, like I said, Estime, short yardage, go pound it up the middle, compared to Harvey, bounce it outside, big plays, passing game, whatever you want to call it. I think all those things, and even talking about McLaughlin as well. I think there's an opportunity for him because he did have some nice plays last year that I think could still be there this year. And so it will be fun to see this run game. That's the thing I'm excited about. It's not just I hope they can pick up 3 yards on this carry. This could actually be a really positive play for the offense. Talking about positive, Michael coming in saying, great show tonight, Carl and Eric on building the Broncos. Go Bo Broncos. And thank you guys. I really appreciate all this support, especially right here at the end, coming in with Michael, with Naj, with Brian Dunn as well. Thank you guys. I'm trying to remember all of you. The Swarley as well came in with some supers as well. Naj, thank you again for all the big ones. We got Papa Bear coming in with his always. Thank you very much. I hope we get to see you at the meet and greet this year. I remember my very first one getting to see you, and that was some great conversations with you. Shiloh coming in early as well, talking about DT. Thank you all for the support, and thank you guys for just tuning in. I know down part of the year, and as Swarley said, sometimes this is the good stuff where we get to talk about some great conversations like DT that maybe we wouldn't get to talk about as much during the season. And I love these kind of conversations, just reminiscing of great times in Broncos history, because there are a lot of them. And DT being a part of one of the greatest runs in our offensive history and being that kind of guy that he was, I really definitely appreciate knowing that he was a Denver Bronco. And, I can't say that about every player. There's some of them that are great players, but not always great humans. DT, great player, great human, and glad that he's getting to be in the Ring of Fame, at least at this point. I don't think he'll make Hall of Fame, but man, he was a Hall of Fame person. So, and thank you all. You are all Hall of Fame people for joining us night in, night out, sometimes in the mornings as well with Eric, and just all the support that you guys give us. Very, very much appreciated. This is Building the Broncos. As Nick always likes to close out the show, choose kindness and compassion, because, that's what we need more in our world today. And you guys have done that here today. So thank you very much, and go Broncos.